humanitarian aid. The biggest agency distributing aid on the ground is UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And we can speak now to Juliette Touma from UNRWA, its Director of Communications based in Amman. Juliette Touma, thank you very much for talking to us today. It's quite rare, isn't it, in the UN that UN personnel actually hand out aid directly as they do in Gaza.
Good to see you, Katya, and sorry for we're speaking under such very difficult circumstances. Yes, UNRWA is the largest UN agency in Gaza, the largest humanitarian actor. We are what we call direct implementers. It means that UNRWA directly delivers assistance to people in need inside Gaza. We have been doing that for nearly 7 decades now.
And the situation is so urgent. We hear this from UNRWA, we hear this from the UN Secretary General, from world leaders, and that's why this agreement was brokered to start letting some aid convoys in. It was hoped to start today, that the trucks would start arriving, but there's a big question mark right now again.
It has not started yet, and for the past nearly 2 weeks, UNRWA and other organizations have not been able to bring in any humanitarian supplies into the Gaza Strip. It's been 2 weeks of siege on the Gaza Strip, and civilians are the ones who are paying the heaviest price. We have to get in those supplies as soon as possible, and we gotta have regular and sustained humanitarian access into the Gaza Strip.
It's basic supplies, isn't it? For 1 million people displaced. I mean, in any case, as we've been saying, 80% of Gazans are reliant on aid, even before this escalation in violence and hostilities. Water, food, medication. But it is a complex situation, isn't it, with so many considerations being taken, one of those being by the UN and other aid agencies saying that the safety of their personnel in handing out the aid has to be guaranteed.
Yeah, so what also needs to get in addition to everything you've mentioned, is fuel. Fuel is absolutely critical to come into the Gaza Strip, because fuel is related to 2 things. It's related to water and it's related to electricity. So we gotta also bring in fuel, absolutely fundamental. And in addition, yes, UNRWA is hosting currently 500,000 people who have come to something like 100 UNRWA facilities and installations. Sadly, many of those installations have been hit or damaged due to the war in the Gaza Strip.
Now, Israel says that it is not aiming its aerial bombardment at civilians, but rather at Hamas and Hamas infrastructure. But we talk so often, don't we, about how crowded Gaza is, and the civilian casualties and civilian suffering is huge. Israel has been reminded by leaders across the region, close allies also like the United States, it does have to think about the civilians of Gaza and the rules, the international rules of war. But also, Israel says it is worried that Hamas might try and divert supplies. And that's also why it doesn't want to let that fuel that you're talking about into the Gaza Strip in case Hamas use it as part of its attacks against Israel.
So on the civilians part, let me just share with a lot of sorrow, that UNRWA has lost 16 of our colleagues, 16 humanitarian workers. Some of them actually were also teachers. We have frontline workers, 16 colleagues that we mourn. I just got confirmation that an additional 2 have been killed.
Juliette Touma, I'm very sorry for the loss of your colleagues, and thank you for speaking to us today. That's Juliette Touma, Director of Communications at UNRWA, which is the UN organisation that hands out aid on the ground inside the Gaza Strip.